Hello, my name is Tyler Engelman, and in this video I'm going to discuss who the Harlem Hellfighters were, what they were known for and what they did, and how they were affected by racism. But before we can begin, we need a little bit of context. In the year 1914, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, a man named Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated in the city of Sarajevo by a Serbian nationalist. Due to the system of alliances in Europe, this led to the beginning of World War I, or the Great War. Although the United States initially wanted to stay neutral and be out of the war, not have to deal with it, events such as the sinking of the Lusitania, as well as the Zimmerman telegram, shifted public opinion, and by 1917, the United States had entered the war. This is where our protagonists come to play. Hailing from Harlem in New York, the all-black 15th New York Infantry Regiment began to prepare for war. During their training, they were relocated down south to the state of South Carolina, where they experienced a level of racism that they weren't accustomed to. In fact, in one incident, it got so bad that one of the soldiers was assaulted by a white man in a hotel lobby just for trying to buy a local newspaper. Fortunately, it wasn't long until they were sent back to New York, and then after that, it wasn't long before they were sent overseas to Europe and France. Although the 15th New York Infantry Regiment weren't in the United States anymore, they still had to deal with its racism. Like many other African American regiments during World War I, the 15th New York Infantry Regiment were posted hundreds of miles away from the front line, and they were made to do menial and boring tasks like digging trenches. This is because many higher-ups in the US military and government believed that black men wouldn't be as good as fighting in the war compared to white men. In fact, it got so bad that the 15th New York Infantry had to wait a whole month and they still hadn't received any orders from higher command. The soldiers kept themselves entertained by playing jazz music, which quickly made them quite famous in the region. In fact, they used this fame to ask General Pershing to send them to the front lines, and he obliged them of their wish and redesignated them as the 369th Infantry Regiment. However, seeing as the American military didn't want black and white soldiers to fight side by side together, the soldiers of the 369th Infantry were to fight along the 16th Division of the French Army instead of a fellow American army. During the war, the 369th Infantry Regiment were given the nickname Hellfighters by the Germans, due to how fiercely they fought. The Hellfighters fought fiercely for a good reason, as they had spent the most time in combat of all of the American regiments during World War I. 191 days of combat. This came at a hefty price, as the Harlem Hellfighters also had the highest casualty rate of any American regiment, with over 1,400 casualties. For their bravery, France awarded 170 individuals, as well as the entire unit as a whole, its highest reward for bravery, the Croix de Guerre. When the war was over, the Harlem Hellfighters returned as heroes. They celebrated with a parade, and they hoped that the country they fought so fiercely for would treat them as equals. However, this wasn't the case. In the South, Jim Crow laws still existed and flourished, and in the 1920s, the KKK had reached its all-time largest popularity in the whole country. It wouldn't be until the civil rights movement several decades afterwards where true equality came. However, the Harlem Hellfighters still left behind a large legacy. They were the first African Americans to actually see combat during World War I, and their bravery helped to dispel the myth that whites were superior at fighting them. After World War I, veterans from the Hellfighters, as well as from other black regiments, became more politically active, and activism for equal rights for African Americans grew. Thank you for watching my presentation and video. I hope you learned something.